It's time now for County-Wide, a presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. You'll hear about the interesting issues and happenings that affect all our lives. Here's today's County-Wide.
Well, a good day to you and welcome into onto the program. And County-Wide, I'm Brad Miller. Very happy to welcome into our studios always any veteran of our fighting forces. And today we're happy to welcome back Don Clark. Don is a Vietnam veteran, a helicopter pilot during that war so many years ago. He was here when we talked about the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War, when the traveling Vietnam replica wall was in Camp Verde a couple of years ago. We learned a lot of things from Don, and his advocacy for on behalf of himself, his comrades, continues to this day. And he's back to join us and talk about some of the things happening. And I want to start, Don. First, thank you for your service as always, and we appreciate having you come into the studio absolutely any time. Don has also steered us toward any number of other folks that also advocate for our veterans, and we appreciate that effort too. March 29th, Don, is, tell me if I'm getting this right, Vietnam War Veterans Day.
That's correct, Brad. This day was selected as it represents the day that the last combat troops left Vietnam in March 29th, 1973.
73, okay. Now, we're not going to be able to go through our entire history books during our time together. I was a child. I don't have a lot of recollection of that. I can remember my dad watching on the news the evacuation of the U.S. Embassy, but that was a couple years later, and there's a lot of fog of war over how that thing kind of culminated to folks so many years removed. Am I remembering that right?
You are correct, and I think what we can do is we can go back a little bit. About 1970, 1971, efforts really escalated to try and end the war, to enter into peace talks. And that finally culminated in the Paris Peace Accord, which was signed on January 27th, 1973.
Okay.
And that was between the Republic of North Vietnam and the revolutionary government, the Viet Cong, and the United States.
Okay.
And one of the provisions of, well, there were several provisions. The first was the U.S. troop withdrawal. So all military personnel began the process. And when I say all military personnel, pretty much anything at the unit level or above began to be withdrawn. And the last combat fighting unit was left on March 29th.
Okay. That's why the date is
right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, the second provision was the prisoner exchange.
Okay.
And the return of the 591 prisoners of war, including our native Arizonan John McCain.
Mm-hmm.
And that began, the first plane loads began to arrive around March 13th, and it continued on beyond March 29th. And the procedure to repatriate the Americans, we tried to bring out the longest serving POWs first.
Okay, sure.
The Vietnamese had kind of their own, the North Vietnamese had kind of their own agenda as well, because they were getting as much propaganda out of it as they could.
Right.
When I was on the Vietnam Commemoration Oversight Committee, I served with Edward Alvarez, who was the second longest serving American POW. He's still alive today. Had a very distinguished career after the war. But just to show you how long he was shot down in August of 1964.
Wow. So almost 10 years.
So this was shortly after the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which essentially drew America into the war on a more formal basis. Right. And so he was the longest serving. John McCain was shot down on 26th of October, 1967.
Okay.
And as many of you know, John McCain was the son of a Navy admiral and the grandson of a Navy admiral.
Right.
And the North Vietnamese wanted to make hay with that, which he did not allow them to do.
Right. He could have come home, is my understanding.
He could have come home.
If he had kind of...
And he chose not to.
Yeah.
And of course, we all know about the treatment. So in any event, we got our POWs back. There were 325 from the Air Force, 77 Army, 138 from the Navy, 26 Marines, and 25 civilians. Now...
And that's why March 29th becomes this commemorative day. It's a huge date.
Commemorative day.
Yeah, for all veterans and all Americans, really. You don't have to have ever served. You can be a youngster in short pants still and turn your eyes to the flag that day, March 29th, thinking about that sacrifice that you've described among your comrades and why it is still important, why it registers today. I know there'll be a number of commemorations, usually smaller in smaller communities, something a little more significant in Phoenix, and likely to be something, I would think much more significant, probably, at the Vietnam Wall in D.C.?
Certainly the Vietnam Wall in D.C.,
Yeah.
there will be a wreath laying, and I don't have a lineup of who's going to be there this year, but typically Jan Scruggs and former Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, who were so instrumental in getting that wall built 50 years ago, will be there. I never let these things go by without talking about the folks who were left behind. And to this day, there are still 1,573 servicemen missing in action, whose bodies have never been repatriated. Right. And the effort to find them still goes on. There were 4 identified last year, 3 Air Force airmen and 1 Army helicopter pilot. So that's ongoing.
Does there exist today then a formal arrangement between the United States and the government of Vietnam? Is it Americans that are there looking for these long lost?
It's a combination.
Okay.
There is cooperation between the governments.
That's good.
The National League of Families is and then there's a Pentagon office.
Okay.
And collectively, they work on trying to find, going to crash site. Now these, and incidentally, as you might expect, most of this were aviation-related situations.
Right.
So there are crash sites that continue to be discovered and excavated. One of my co-pilots, who was in Vietnam after I left, is still missing. He became an aircraft commander after I left, in essence, kind of took my place.
Okay.
And his aircraft is still missing.
Wow.
All these years later. And individuals from my unit have gone back to Vietnam who were there on that mission. It was, the unit had been moved to the north. So it was not an area that I was familiar with. I flew in the Mekong Delta, but the unit was moved north for a big operation in January and February of 1970. Okay. And the aircraft was lost at that time.
And one of them still there.
Yes, he and his co-pilot are still missing.
Okay.
They're among the 1573.
And those are the folks, the men and women that we would want to commemorate every day of the year, but certainly on our March 29th coming up just around the corner, Vietnam War Veterans Day. We do need to take a break. Don is still very, very active, and I want to talk about that, some of the outreach, some of the advocacy that Vietnam War veteran Don Clark and some other local veterans that we have had the pleasure to meet over the past few years, what they continue to do today. There's an important program that is up and running that you could be a part of, veteran or not. We'll talk more with Don Clark on Countywide right after this.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Thank you so very much for your generosity and kindness in helping others. I hope that you take advantage of the many Arizona state tax credits available when giving to qualified charities and schools. If you haven't taken advantage, I hope you'll ask your favorite charity if they qualify. You can go to Arizona Department of Revenue website, search for tax credits, and look at the list of qualifying charities. Then look at your latest Arizona income tax return and see how an Arizona tax credit can benefit many. This is Lewis saying thanks again.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
We welcome you back to the program. It is Countywide. I'm Brad Miller, and pleased and privileged to welcome Don Clark into our studio again. Don is a Vietnam War veteran and very much is an advocate for fellow veterans and all branches of the service, both current, recently a veteran if you've been discharged recently, and even if you're not a veteran, why wouldn't you be a part of some of the things that Don has become a part of himself? And the latest of those is the Sedona area. Help me with this, Don. Sedona area veterans. I can't do it.
Sedona area veterans community outreach.
Community outreach. Okay, there you go. SAVCO. You've got an acronym, SAVCO, just like it sounds. Sedona area veterans and community outreach. Now, is this a new organization?
It's several years old.
Okay.
It's been involved in the Toys for Tots program since for at least 10 years or so, but it has expanded. One of the issues that we have are the existing veterans organizations tend to get a little bit smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. We just don't have as many veterans coming out of the service as we did in years past. And our Vietnam generation, for example, they're now in their late 70s, early 80s, mm-hmm. and we're losing them at 500 a day.
Yeah.
So SAVCO is open to all branches of service, all generations of veterans, whether you just got out of the service yesterday or like me, you got out 50 years ago. But it's also open to individuals who just share our vision. We're non-political, we're community-oriented, we're civic, we're patriotic. We put the flags up on 89A, and we take them back down because the Arizona Department of Transportation lets us put them up 3-4 days at a time. And so we recognize the various flag holidays, like Flag Day, and Veterans Day, and Memorial Day, and hopefully in the future, Vietnam War Veterans Day. We have applied for the right to put the flags up and take the flags down. That program's called 89 Flags on 89A.
Okay.
And I should also recognize that the Kiwanis puts up the flags in Uptown Sedona.
Right. Okay.
But in addition to that, we are the organization that runs Toys for Tots in Sedona, and have for several years.
Well, that's a U.S. Marine Corps thing, like from way back, right?
Way back.
Okay, so that's a natural fit.
It's the Marine Corps League, and as the number of Marines began to dwindle in our small town of Sedona, SAVCO, which is a multi force organization of both veterans and civilians, had the manpower to take it over.
Bring everybody under one roof.
It's a big operation, and it begins in earnest in October. Of course, we're in the planning stages right now.
Right.
And you're all familiar with the collection boxes. As a matter of fact, we had hoped to lead the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Sedona, but we got snowed out. But we were going to have members walking in the with inside collection boxes. So you're all familiar with that. What perhaps people don't realize is that when all those collection boxes are collected, everything has to be sorted. Mm-hmm. And we're talking thousands and thousands of toys.
It's a big job.
It's a big job.
We had Len Barrow in here talking about their effort, and you don't. You think, well, it goes in the box, it gets to the kid.
Yeah.
And like you're describing now, I know that there's an awful lot to it. There's a lot of manpower, a lot of time, a lot of love that goes into getting that done, because it gets done every year. But it's, your donation just kind of is the start.
Sure. So there were 1,400 families that were supported, many with multiple children of different ages, and the gifts are selected and sorted so that they're age appropriate.
Yeah.
And we also, in addition, we purchased toys with monetary contributions, and anything that's excess, and typically we're fortunate enough to have excess, goes to the Hopi Reservation.
Terrific. That's outstanding. That's great. If somebody wants to be a part of this, I think most people are familiar certainly with the phrase Toys for Tots, and especially holiday time, as you suggested, is when most eyes kind of turn toward that program. But being in the planning stages now, simply a new toy, or very, very lightly used. New is most preferable. Who doesn't want something brand new and shiny under the Christmas tree? And these are going to go to kids who may not otherwise feel that blessing of Christmas. It's simple as that. It sounds like an easy thing to do, and it can be. It doesn't have to be a $200 toy. It could be something much simpler than that. But just that big effort can make. I guess it's effort compared to what it brings. And you think about that, putting a smile on a kid's face on Christmas Day. What better gift could anybody give? Mm-hmm. So we always encourage people to be a part of that. And now this year, SAVCO is going to be right in the middle of that. Talk to me a little bit. I don't want time to get away from us, because I know that there's the website that very much advocates for the Vietnam War and perhaps some of the commemorations coming up on the 29th. Talk to me quickly about that.
Yeah, I will. First of all, for SAVCO, we do have a website. Also, it's SAVCO.org, and you can get information about membership there. And again, it's really open to anyone who shares our vision.
Who do you need? Let me jump in real quick. Do you need kind of volunteers to help with that? Are there certain projects where some certain expertise might especially apply? Or
no special expertise.
Okay.
For example, putting the flags up and taking the flags down, it takes 12 people, about 2 hours, and 2 generously donated ATVs from Sedona ATV to put all those flags up. And then 3 or 4 days later, we got to take them all back down. Okay. So that's just good old-fashioned fresh air manual labor.
On the ground doing it work. Okay.
But in addition, you might imagine living in the wind conditions we lived in here, the flags are maintained and frequently replaced. Yeah. As well as the flagpoles. Sometimes our flagpoles get bent. Toys for Tots takes a lot of effort. Right. Takes a lot of manpower to just help us sort and collect all of the toys and then distribute them. In addition to that, we're the we plan the military side of the Veterans Day and Memorial Day ceremonies. And we've had to move from the Sedona Veterans Park, which is located right on 89A, because it's just not big enough for the ceremonies. So typically now our ceremonies are held at Posse Grounds Park, or with cooperation of the Sedona Heritage Museum.
Okay.
We do also provide scholarship support for Sedona area high school kids going off to college or going into the military. There's financial support for that as well. And if you're a veteran that just needs somebody to talk to, or you're traveling through and your car alternator went out and you need help, we're there to do that as well.
So very practical things that you do.
Yeah.
I mean, very hands-on, one-on-one. Just sometimes a phone call comes in, somebody's able to help somebody who's got troubles or some kind of difficulty. And I love that local face-to-face ability. 800 numbers are great. They're fantastic. But knowing that I've got somebody maybe in 10 minutes driving away that can kind of help out, that's comforting.
Yeah.
To think of. That's great.
And we work with the Sedona Police and the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. Sometimes they're the first to encounter a situation where they need more than just what they're capable of providing.
Gotcha. All right. Don, we're bumping up against time. I do want to mention quickly, folks, strongly encourage you to take a look, VietnamWar50th.com. So take a look there, and a lot of good information historically wise. Don strongly recommended that to me before we opened the mics this morning. VietnamWar50th.com, I guess established during the 50th commemoration a couple of years ago. March 29th, coming up, is Vietnam War Veterans Day. On behalf of our guest today, Don Clark, we would ask you to commemorate that in whichever way you choose. Think about those who went before us and who served their time so long ago that is still fresh in the memories of people like Don Clark and his fellow combatants. We appreciate, again, your service, sir. Thank you for sharing your time and your message with us today. It is Countywide. We'll see you next time.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Thank you so very much for your generosity and kindness in helping others. I hope that you take advantage of the many Arizona state tax credits available when giving to qualified charities and schools. If you haven't taken advantage, I hope you'll ask your favorite charity if they qualify. You can go to Arizona Department of Revenue website, search for tax credits, and look at the list of qualifying charities. Then look at your latest Arizona income tax return and see how an Arizona tax credit can benefit many. This is Lewis saying thanks again.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
This has been Countywide. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday at this time. If you have a topic or guest idea that you'd like to suggest, email us, news@myradioplace.com.